A mysterious woman disguised as a private chef sneaks into a billionaire's penthouse. Her mission: to expose the powerful stepmother who may have murdered her father. But one wrong turn leads her face to face with Damien Cross, the man who holds the key to everything, and maybe her heart. Lies, danger, secrets, and a hidden heirloom ignite a breathtaking battle for justice and love. Who is Elena Hartley really, and how far will she go to reclaim her legacy? Where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to hear the next unforgettable story. The sky above Manhattan shimmered with city lights as sleek black cars rolled up to the glass tower on Fifth Avenue, where the penthouse of billionaire Damien Cross crowned the skyline like a secret fortress. Inside, chandeliers cast golden webs of light across marble floors, and masked guests in couture and tuxedos clinked crystal glasses at a masquerade unlike any other. The air thrummed with jazz and whispers of million-dollar mergers. But amidst the glamour, one woman moved with a purpose that had nothing to do with champagne or silk. Elena Hartley adjusted her chef's coat, crisp and flawless, as she passed through the main kitchen's back entrance and into the whirlwind of the evening's chaos. To the others, she was just a late-hour replacement, an exclusive private chef hired last minute when the original fell sick. In truth, Elena had orchestrated that illness herself. She wasn't here to grill lamb chops or garnish risotto. She was here to infiltrate the private domain of Damien Cross, the elusive tech tycoon, to recover something that once belonged to her father. 3 months earlier, her world had collapsed with the sudden death of Arthur Hartley, prominent investor and philanthropist. On his deathbed, he had whispered to her a name: Vivienne Cross, Damien's stepmother and a woman of opulent taste and ruthless ambition. Arthur had once co-founded a company with the Cross family, but a silent betrayal had left him pushed out and poisoned by scandal. He believed Vivienne had orchestrated everything, from financial sabotage to murder. And hidden somewhere within Damien's world, he said, was the proof: a family heirloom watch embedded with a microchip holding encrypted files that could expose it all. Elena had tracked that watch to this penthouse, and tonight she would retrieve it. She moved through the sprawling rooms, her eyes taking in everything: where the guards stood, where the high rollers lingered, and most importantly, where the glass case containing the Cross family collection gleamed like a shrine in the main hall. She saw it there. A vintage Omega watch with emerald accents, the same one her father used to wear during his speeches. A pang of emotion hit her chest, but she pushed it down. No time for sentiment. Julian Ward's message buzzed in her earpiece. 10 minutes. The floor behind the atrium is quiet. Use the service hallway near the wine cellar. Elena slipped through the crowd, balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres like a seasoned pro. When she reached the hallway, she ducked out of sight and followed a quiet corridor toward a locked side door. With a swipe of the keycard she'd cloned from a distracted security guard earlier, it clicked open. She stepped inside, expecting to find the private study, where she hoped to access the case's biometric security system through Damien's personal files. Instead, she froze. Steam coiled through the air like mist, clinging to polished tile and glass walls. A rainfall shower in the corner hissed softly, and from behind the foggy glass, a figure moved. Elena's breath caught. She had entered the wrong room, and it was too late. The glass door slid open with a quiet squeak, and Damien Cross stepped out, water trailing down his chest. He reached for a towel but stopped short when he saw her. His dark eyes narrowed instantly, cutting through her like blades. His presence filled the room, tall, toned, and commanding. For a moment, the air between them thickened with disbelief and tension. "What the hell are you doing in here?" His voice was deep, roughened by surprise. Elena fumbled backward, heart in her throat. I thought this was the study. I'm sorry, I must have." He caught sight of the slim band on her finger. It wasn't a ring, it was a tiny camera. His eyes darkened. "Interesting accessory for a chef," he said, stepping forward with just a towel around his waist. "You breaking into my private spaces for a selfie?" "It's not what it looks like," Elena stammered, trying to cover the device. He reached out faster than she could react, snatching her wrist and pulling the ring off with one swift motion. He examined it, eyes flicking over the hidden lens and blinking light. "Cute," he muttered, then looked at her again. You're not a chef. Who the hell are you? Elena's mind raced. She couldn't blow her cover. Not yet. Look, I swear I'm not here to hurt anyone. You're just about to become my new full-time personal chef, Damien interrupted coldly. And until I figure out what your game is, you don't leave this penthouse, not without my permission. He turned and walked away, the ring still in his hand. Elena stood there, stunned, her pulse hammering like a war drum. She hadn't planned on this. She hadn't planned on him. And now, the man she needed to outsmart had just locked her in his gilded cage. Morning light poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting honeyed streaks across the pristine counters of the cross-penthouse kitchen. Elena stood over a saucepan, stirring hollandaise with a precision that belied the chaos simmering just beneath her calm exterior. Every movement she made, every garnish she placed, was being watched. She could feel Damien's presence even when he wasn't in the room. His eyes, cold and calculating, seemed to follow her wherever she went. He hadn't turned her in. He hadn't asked security to escort her out or accused her publicly. But he had confiscated her camera ring and assigned her as his live-in private chef, an excuse to keep her close and monitor every step. The luxury she was surrounded by felt more like a cage, and she knew the walls were lined with invisible tripwires she couldn't afford to trigger. Across the penthouse, the case still gleamed, her father's watch resting in plain sight like a cruel taunt. But without her device, without access to biometric files or schematics from Damien's system, she was stranded in a mission that was rapidly slipping through her fingers. The microchip inside the heirloom was real, encrypted with offshore accounts and payout trails that implicated Vivienne in Arthur's destruction. Elena had to get that chip, she just didn't know how. Julian's encrypted text arrived in the early afternoon. Vivienne's accelerating. She has a new investor from Dubai. Dangerous, eyes everywhere. Be invisible. Elena wiped her hands on a towel, nerves prickling. Being invisible was impossible with Damien constantly dropping into the kitchen under the pretense of craving espresso. He'd wander in casually, sleeves rolled, phone in hand, pretending not to study her. But his glances lingered. He asked odd questions. What's your favorite spice? Where'd you train? Do you always carry high-tech jewelry when you cook? He didn't trust her, and he shouldn't. Later that day, Damien announced he was hosting a dinner for a select few elite investors and expected her to cater it. Elena nodded, already planning her next move. This dinner could be her chance. She knew where the digital panel controlling the display case was hidden, beneath the shelf adjacent to the wine fridge. If she could distract the security cameras just long enough, maybe she could slip the watch out, scan it, and return it before anyone noticed. The evening arrived in a glittering haze of designer suits and flutes of Dom Perignon. Elena moved like a shadow through the guests, dressed in crisp black and armed with a small blade, not for violence, but to unscrew the panel's casing if the moment came. She counted the guests, 8 men, 1 woman. Then her breath caught as Vivienne Cross entered, regal in an ivory-wrapped dress that clung to her figure like silk on bone. Her face was ageless, smile sharp, eyes colder than crystal. On her arm was a man Elena didn't recognize, but his presence was like static in the air, alert, dangerous, foreign. This must be the investor Julian had warned her about. Damien greeted them with the kind of politeness that bordered on performance. Elena caught a flicker in his eyes, a guarded tension he hadn't shown before. He didn't trust Vivienne either. Elena served the appetizer course, then slipped toward the glass case, heart hammering. The cover to the panel was right where she remembered. She knelt, feigning a spill on the tray, and pulled a small magnet from her pocket, pressing it against the sensor to disable the local camera temporarily. Just 1 minute, she told herself. That's all I need. She was sliding the cover off when a voice stopped her cold. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Elena froze, her fingers halfway inside the panel, and looked up into the steel blue eyes of Isla Cross. Vivienne's daughter. She stood just feet away, champagne in hand, lips curled in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Looking for a napkin, are we? Isla purred, stepping closer. Elena rose slowly, maintaining composure. Just fixing a jam in the chiller. Isla leaned in, her whisper a blade wrapped in velvet. You're not the help. You don't move like the help. I saw you last night outside the study. You're digging, aren't you? Elena's jaw tightened. She said nothing. Isla smiled wider. My mother has a way of handling pests. You should be careful. Sometimes they disappear." With that, she walked away, her heels clicking like a metronome of menace. Elena stood there for a moment, pulse racing, adrenaline flooding her limbs. She had almost been caught, but worse than that, she was now on their radar. Her margin for error had just evaporated. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in the guest suite of the penthouse, staring at the ceiling fan's slow, deliberate spin, her thoughts racing in dizzying circles. Isla's threat wasn't idle. Elena had seen too many people vanish from the world of high finance after crossing the wrong line. She kept the lights off, the windows locked, and her phone close to her chest. Even the luxury of the room felt suffocating now, a velvet cage wrapped in paranoia. Just after 2 a.m., her encrypted phone buzzed softly. It was Julian. "They took photos of me leaving the safe house. I think I'm compromised. Lay low." The message was followed by another a few seconds later. "Scratch that. They're here." Panic surged through her. She typed furiously, "Where are you?" No reply. She paced the room until dawn, her stomach twisted in knots. At 6:04 a.m., another message arrived, but this time not from Julian's usual encryption route. It was untraceable, sent from a masked number. It contained a single sentence and a grainy image. "Meet us at Dock 19 in Red Hook. Come alone or he dies." The photo was worse than anything she could have braced for. Julian, bound to a chair, face bloodied, eyes swollen nearly shut. Terror flooded her, but beneath it, rage simmered hotter. They had her only ally. She had to go, but she couldn't go blind. She needed some kind of plan, except there wasn't time to build one. She needed help, and the only person close enough to act quickly was the last person she should trust. Damien. Elena stood outside his home office door, fist clenched. The image of Julian burned behind her eyes. She could hear Damien's voice on a call inside. Low, firm, clipped tones in a language she didn't recognize. He ended the call just as she knocked. "Come in," he said, without looking up. She hesitated before stepping inside. Damien sat behind a sleek obsidian desk, tie half loosened, the faint shadows under his eyes betraying long hours and little sleep. He looked up at her with that same unreadable stare that always made her feel like she was balancing on a wire stretched too tight. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tighter than she wanted it to be. He motioned to the seat across from him. "I'm listening." "I got a message this morning," she said, sliding her phone across the desk. "They have Julian. They're demanding I meet them tonight. Alone." Damien glanced at the image, his jaw clenched. "Who sent this?" "I don't know, but I'd bet everything I own it ties back to Vivienne. She's covering her tracks." He studied her, weighing the danger in her expression, the tremble in her fingers that she was trying hard to hide. "And you're telling me this because I can't do this on my own. I don't have resources, you do." Damien's brow furrowed. "You really think I'd help you after everything? You broke into my home, lied to me, tried to steal from me." "And I'd do it again," Elena snapped, standing. "Because I'm not the criminal here. Your stepmother is. She's the reason my father's dead. Julian is paying for helping me, and if you're half the man you pretend to be, you won't let her get away with this." The room fell silent. Damien stood slowly, his height suddenly imposing. But instead of anger, his expression shifted to something deeper: conflict. "I've suspected Vivienne for a long time," he said finally. "She's ruthless, manipulative. My father trusted her blindly, and it cost him everything. But I never had proof, only gut feelings." Elena stared at him. "Then let me give you proof. Help me get Julian out, and I'll show you everything I've found." Damien didn't answer right away. He turned, walked to a cabinet near the window, and opened it to reveal a hidden panel of security monitors and gear. "I'll have 2 of my men in the area. You'll go in with a mic and tracker. No hero moves." Relief swept over her so quickly she almost staggered. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," Damien said as he loaded a fresh clip into a small pistol and handed it to one of his guards. "If you're playing me again, I'll know." Hours later, Elena stood outside Dock 19. The sun had dipped low, painting the Brooklyn sky with bruised purples and orange streaks. The warehouse ahead looked abandoned, its windows black and broken. She took a shaky breath and walked toward the entrance, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. Inside, 2 men waited in the shadows. And Julian was still alive. But barely. The room stank of rust and gasoline. Elena stepped into the warehouse, her boots crunching over broken glass, her every nerve screaming. Her eyes locked on Julian, bound to a chair, head slumped to one side. A cut along his temple leaked blood in a slow trickle, but his chest moved. He was still alive. Relief swelled, only to be shattered by the sound of a gun cocking. "Not another step," growled a voice behind her. She froze. Two men emerged from the shadows, one with a pistol trained on her, the other holding her phone, already smashed beneath his boot. Gone was any evidence she'd managed to collect so far. The taller man, lean and mean-looking, stepped closer, his blade gleaming in the dim light. "You've been poking around in places that don't concern you," he said, his accent rough and unplaceable. "Now you're going to tell us who you really are and who's backing you." "I'm a reporter," Elena replied, voice low but steady. "I got curious, that's all." The man with the gun sneered. "You expect us to believe that? After the gala? After the cellar? You're not just some nosy writer." Julian groaned softly behind her, lifting his head with effort. "Don't tell them anything, Elena." The taller man stepped toward him and backhanded him across the face. Elena flinched. "Enough," she shouted, stepping forward, eyes blazing. "You hurt him again, and I swear—" "You'll what?" the man taunted, lifting the knife toward her face. "Call your billionaire boyfriend? Oh wait, you're all alone." But just as the blade touched her skin, a crash shattered the standoff. The side door slammed open. Floodlights blazed through the dark as two men in tactical gear burst in, weapons drawn. Behind them, Damien strode in like a storm, his face carved from fury. "Step away from her," he commanded, voice like thunder. The thugs hesitated, caught off guard. The gunman raised his weapon toward Damien, but too late. A shot rang out from one of Damien's men, knocking the pistol from the thug's hand with precision. The taller one grabbed Elena, dragging her close and pressing the knife to her throat. "You think you're untouchable, Cross?" he snarled. "You want her alive, you back off." Damien didn't flinch, his eyes locked on Elena's, steady, fierce. "You let her go now," he said, stepping forward, "or I make you regret it." A heartbeat of silence. Then the thug shoved Elena hard, sending her stumbling. Damien's guard tackled the man before he could escape. The second thug made a run for it but was intercepted at the door. Elena dropped to her knees beside Julian, untying him with trembling hands. "You're okay," she whispered, brushing blood from his cheek. "You're safe now." Julian nodded faintly. "Told you not to come alone." Damien crouched beside them, his shirt blood-stained from a scuffle, a cut along his forearm seeping through his sleeve. Elena's gaze snapped to it. "You hurt?" "I've had worse," he muttered. "You're lucky I followed you." She helped Julian to his feet with Damien's support, and they made their way to a waiting car. As the city blurred past them, Elena sat beside Damien in silence, her mind reeling. He had come for her. He had risked everything, even trusted her enough to intervene. Back at the penthouse, a private doctor tended to Julian, while Elena stood in the living room, her hands gripping the back of a leather chair to keep from shaking. Damien stood across the room by the bar, pouring himself a drink with one hand, the other bandaged. He glanced over, his expression unreadable. "I could have lost you tonight." "You didn't," she replied softly. He took a sip. "I need the truth now, Elena. All of it. No more games." She looked at him, really looked. The man who had once been her target had bled for her tonight. He'd seen what she was fighting against. There was no more use hiding. "My real name is Elena Hartley," she said quietly. "Arthur Hartley was my father. He died 3 months ago under suspicious circumstances. Your stepmother, Vivienne, she betrayed him, stole from him, helped ruin his reputation. Before he died, he told me where the proof was. It's hidden in the watch, the one you have in your vault." Damien's gaze darkened, jaw tight. "The Cross family heirloom?" "It holds a microchip," she said. "Encrypted files, voice memos, proof of everything she did. I came here to steal it. I didn't know how else to fight her." He set his glass down slowly, walking toward her until they were face to face. "You lied to me from day one." "I did," Elena admitted, her voice trembling, "but only because I had no other choice." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, her camera ring. "You'll need this," he said, placing it in her hand. "But if you're playing me, Elena, I'll bury you." She swallowed hard, closing her fingers around the ring. "I'm not." And for the first time, Damien didn't look at her like a threat. He looked at her like something far more dangerous, someone he could believe in. The sun had barely risen when Elena stood before the vault, her breath catching in her throat as Damien punched in the access code. The steel door hissed open, revealing the cold interior and a single item resting inside, the Cross family heirloom watch. It glinted under the overhead light, its emerald face polished to perfection. But Elena knew what really mattered wasn't the time it told. It was the data it hid. The microchip embedded behind its dial contained the last weapon her father had left her, a key to justice wrapped in gold. Damien stepped aside, his arms crossed as he watched her approach the pedestal. "You said this would prove everything." Elena nodded, picking up the watch gently, like it was a relic. "It will." Back upstairs, she connected the chip to her laptop. The screen flickered, processing. Files emerged, thousands of encrypted records, spreadsheets of diverted funds, wire transfers to untraceable accounts, audio files of meetings between Vivienne and offshore partners. But one file froze Elena in place, a voice memo dated just weeks before Arthur Hartley's death. She clicked it. Vivienne's voice crackled through the speaker, calm and razor-sharp. "Arthur knows too much. He won't go quietly. I want it handled. Stroke, heart attack, I don't care. Make it clean." Damien turned pale. "She killed him," Elena whispered, "and made the world believe it was natural." Julian, now recovered and sitting beside her, added, "That's enough to bury her. With your support, we can present it at the shareholders' meeting, expose her publicly." Damien was silent for a long time, staring out the window at the city skyline. Then he turned. "She's scheduled to announce herself as chairwoman tomorrow. If you're going to do this, that's your only shot." Elena nodded, her jaw tight with purpose. "I'm ready." The next morning, the Cross-Reynolds boardroom buzzed with anticipation. Investors, executives, and media representatives filled the polished space as Vivienne Cross stood at the head of the table, all poise and power. Her pearl earrings caught the light, her tailored white suit pristine, and her voice smooth as she addressed the crowd. "With your blessing," she said, "I intend to lead this company into a new era, one rooted in stability and vision, just as my late husband would have wanted." A smattering of applause rose until the doors swung open. Elena walked in, flanked by Damien and Julian. Gasps rippled across the room. Vivienne's eyes narrowed. "What is the meaning of this?" Elena stepped forward, calm and clear. "My name is Elena Hartley. I'm Arthur Hartley's daughter, and I have evidence proving that your era of leadership was built on theft, lies, and murder." A heavy silence fell. Elena connected her laptop to the projection screen and pressed play. The room filled with Vivienne's damning voice. Executives shifted uncomfortably, some paling, others glaring at Vivienne. "This is a setup," Vivienne snapped. "She's an imposter." Julian stood. "I worked with Arthur. I heard her voice ordering his death. I saw the accounts she laundered." Damien followed. "I verified the files. They're real. She used my family's name to destroy hers." Security moved before Vivienne could flee. The room erupted in chaos as officers cuffed her, her composure finally cracking. "You'll regret this," she hissed at Elena. "You have no idea who I am." "I know exactly who you are," Elena replied. "And now, so does everyone else." As Vivienne was escorted out, Ela slipped away silently, her fall from grace complete. Hours later, Elena stood on the rooftop terrace of the penthouse, wind in her hair, the city stretching beneath her. Damien joined her, a rare smile softening his usually guarded expression. "You really did it," he said. "You brought her down." Elena turned to him. "We did." He took her hand, then paused, his eyes searching hers. "But what now?" She looked at him, heart pounding. "There's something I haven't told you." A beat passed. "I'm pregnant." The world seemed to pause. Damien blinked. "Mine?" She nodded. He laughed, an unfiltered, stunned sound. Then he stepped forward, placing a hand on her stomach. "Then we're not done, are we?" "No," she whispered. "We're just getting started." As the sun dipped behind the skyline, Elena knew her father's legacy was safe. But more than that, she had forged something new. Something built not on lies or revenge, but on truth. And something dangerously close to love. Life lesson from the story. In a world driven by power, wealth, and appearances, the story of Elena Hartley reminds us that truth has a strength far greater than deception. Elena's journey began with grief and desperation. But what carried her through wasn't just the need for justice. it was her unwavering courage and belief in doing what's right. Even when the odds were stacked against her, when she was cornered by lies, betrayal, and danger, she chose integrity over fear. This story teaches us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to confront the darkness with nothing but our truth. That the legacy we carry is not just one we inherit, but one we shape through our actions. Alina didn't just fight for her father's memory, she fought for her own future, and along the way found something even more valuable: trust, purpose, and love born from chaos. We all face moments when we are underestimated, doubted, or challenged. But if we stay true to who we are and what we believe in, we can transform those moments into defining victories. And sometimes, even the most unexpected allies can change the course of our story. Where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss another story like this one. Thank you for being here.